If you've come here to see a genius brewer teach you how to brew beer in 5 easy steps, you've come to the wrong spot, because I don't know the first thing about brewing. But I have this. This is the Minibrew machine, and it's going to tell me exactly what to do. With this app, it's going to tell me what to add, when to add it, how to make beer. Right, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is get some advice from somewhere. So I'm looking to find a brew shop. So I Google the best brew shop in London, and I can see there's a number here in the list that I can pick from. But I like to look at the top one, Waterintobeer, not too far away. They've got 4.9 stars, so it's quite good in terms of reviews. So I'll look at them reviews, and there's nothing but good things to say about them here. Incredible beer selection, extremely helpful. That's exactly what I need. And even the 1-star reviews, look, they're not even 1-star reviews. They just don't know how to review, and they forgot to click the number of stars. But all the words that are said are really good. So this is really a 5-star shop. So I make the journey over there. It's about 15 minutes from my house, so I take the drive. They've got all this brewing equipment in there, lots of stuff that I wouldn't even know what to do with. And I talk to the patron, and he's so helpful. Actually, he gets a brewing book out, and he brings me this recipe. He says it's a nice, simple one. He goes and gets me all the ingredients I need, and then I'm happy out. I'm back at home in my little brew shop in the garden, and I think I'll start just with a bottle of Whitstable Bay, a nice pale ale from down the road here, and if I can hit that kind of level of beer, I'll be quite happy for myself. So let's start up. The first thing to do, I've done a cleaning cycle on the machine with a dishwasher tab, and the next thing, I just click onto the app itself, and it tells me to put 2 litres of water in there, and this is really just to do a little boil on the device itself. So I put the lid back on that and close it in, and we've got these little hoses. So I take them hoses, and they pop over the ends at the back, and you've got these 2 little black clips that just clip onto the keg. And now that's all in place, I go to the computer and I set a cycle running, and you can feel the hot water is running through that. Feel them hoses, and they're nice and hot, and about an hour later that's done. So I can take off the little device at the back, unscrew it a little bit more, and it comes off. And I've built my little studio to have a little sink just beside me. So I pop off them 2 black caps as well, and you can see the water begins to spill out there a little bit. And the next thing to do is undo the top of it, and we'll let that water that was just really to sterilize it, and we're going to let that go. So I use a towel because it is hot, not so hot, but I then can unscrew the lid. Now I put that down, but I need to put that over to one side because I need to make sure that's completely sterile for when that's going back in again. Now you've got to close the valve on the base of it, just to be able to lift it up, and if you did lift it without closing the valve, obviously the water would be going everywhere. So I pop that over. I've built a little sink just next to my unit, so I can just undo the little valve there, let that water go down into the sink, and then you pop it back on its base unit, and you can see that what you've got in the app is just showing you everything that you need to do step by step all the way along the way. Now for the good bit, this is the actual mixing. So I've got the ingredients he's given me. That's the Maris Otter malt. He's also given me the carousel malt. And the last one is the Melonidin malt as well. So smaller amounts of the last bits. And he's also given me some Citra hops. And he's given me a little packet of yeast as well. Now that Citra hops gives a nice tropical flavour and tropical aromas, so I'm hoping to get that out of the beer. Fingers crossed. We'll see how this goes. So I've taken the kitchen scales. I'm just putting them on a 0 tare with a little bowl there. And now I'm into the process. Now I properly feel like I'm a brewer. So I've got the Maris Otter, which apparently is a very common kind of a malt that you use, so that's why he's given me a bit extra of that, and he said I'll be getting other malts then just to mix in other flavours for other beers, but that will be a general steady malt in it. So 900 grams of that going into my little mixing bowl there. The next one is the carousel. So I had a little trouble with the app just figuring out, I kept trying the measurements until it accepted it, and eventually we settled for 900 grams of the Maris, and then 200 grams of this, the caramel malt, and then the last one, the Melonidin malt, it's just 100 grams of that. And the three malts are very different. You can see that the Cara Gold is much more kind of husky, and this final one is just very, very flowery. So just, a small amount of that going in there. And we mix them all together then. And it's telling me to add some pre-mixed water in there. So it's 0.75 of litres to put in there. So I pour it in and you can feel it's just soaking into them grains. And all them malty smells now are beginning to come out of that studio and into my little space. I feel like a proper brewer. So I'm happy with this little process. Now we take our little device. That's the mash tun, and we put the black lid on it just to stop everything falling down through the tube. And then that's it. We put our ingredients in there, spread them all out. I just leveled them out a little bit, and we get rid of that little black plastic cap because you don't need that then. And then you've got the other mesh thing to go on the top, and it's quite straightforward. They're both labelled up, one top, one bottom. It tells you this side up. You can't really go wrong with that part of the process. And then we've got this sturdy black lid. It's got these little clips on the side of it, so there's about 5 or 6 of them. You put them in there right, they just locate into place and they clip down, and that holds the whole thing in place. And we've got this little kind of a stopper in there. Don't really know what that's for, but I'll just leave that in place. So here is my Citra hops. Now, he told me once I open these, close them up with a closed peg and put them in the freezer. So this is the first time I'll be using them fresh like this. They'll be frozen coming out next time. And yeah, I'm getting that lovely smell out of there. It's like a lovely, fresh, kind of herby smell. So really nice. And yeah, the next thing to do is the next part of the process. So again, the app just triggers you on every time you click the button, it tells you the next thing to do. So now I'm putting my kettle water into the keg itself, and I need 6.25 litres to go in there. So I put 0.75 in with the premix, and then I'm putting in 6.25. So it's a total of 7 litres of water for this whole process to make what we're hoping is going to be 5 litres of beer. So I don't know where the other 2 litres go. Some of it will remain in the mash itself, I guess. But that's it. I've got that very accurate as it's a first go. I don't want to leave anything to kind of chance. Get it as accurate as I possibly can. Now I'm going to pop this little special kind of a net thing. It just nestles down into place, and you can see it's just kind of a bit loose, but it's got its correct spot. So if you just figure that out, it just sits down perfectly into its little spot when you've got that right. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And that will catch anything that falls through when we're doing this first part of the boil process to make the wort. And you can see the mash tun, it's got a couple of little hooks on the top of it, and it just very easily sits perfectly into place. And this is the lid that drops all the hops in. When I built this little shelf, I wish the hell I'd just built it a little bit higher than that. I did measure it, but I didn't figure that this part of the process was going to be so important. And you can see it's got the little holes there that we're going to drop the hops into. So when I worked the recipe through and kind of brought the ingredients back to what I thought they'd be for this one, it's 12 grams of Citra hops. And I think you can drop them at different times, but I can't find anywhere finding out what to do with that. So I'm just going to put them all into that and put them in number 1 and hope for the best. So we've got these little bags that I've got on Amazon, and we just tie that up, tie the string around it, give it a little soaking there with water. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to drop that into number 1, and I'm going to hope for the best and switch the machine going. And then you can see it's great. Look, the hot water is going right up through all of that malt and the grains. The hops will drop in at the time that's predetermined by the machine. And it's just very therapeutic watching this. I thought I'd just leave it be and go back inside, but actually I just kind of like watching it, to be honest. So it's nice, gives me a bit of time now in this bit of the process as well. I got this little book on Etsy, so this is a brewer's journal. It's stamped up with my logo and my name and everything on the front of it. So and it's got so much advice in there of the different types of hops and things. So I'd really advise getting a book like this if you're just starting to brew. And I'm going to write in my recipe, and I just want to write down everything that happens along the process. So if I get anything wrong, I should have it there in record, or if I get anything right, I should be able to replicate it on the next pour. Now, this is the bit. Everything on this tray is super sterile. It's all been really well washed, and it's been done with a no-rinse sanitizer as well. So I know everything is super clean, and I wash my hands if I touch anything on that tray that I'm going to use near the wort. And this is the wort, and this is the time we need to be surgical clean. Like last time it was cookery clean, this is surgical clean. So I take out that little bag, and it's caught loads and loads of the malts and stuff that must have just floated up through and into there. So I've taken them out to one side, and it's just the wort left over. And I take the very sterile lid and I pop it on the top and screw it on. And there we go. Now, what I probably should have done before now is put the little stand together. But that's okay. It just gives me a few minutes now to take these. It comes in 3 parts, and I just click the 3 parts in together. And on top of that as well, you've also got 3 little screws that you put into the top of it there. So once you tighten them in, it's actually quite sturdy. I was a bit worried that this might be a little bit light, but actually it holds together quite well. So I pop them 3 little sections in there, and that makes the stand. It's a nice sturdy little stand there, and it's just ready to go and get my keg now and pop it on the top. So there we go. Right, with that in place there, the next thing we need to do is just plug that in with some power. So it always comes with a Euro plug, this machine. I've got a Euro adapter, so I can just plug that in there, put the back of it into, and then switch that on. And the little silver disc there I press just to link that to the Wi-Fi. So that will then talk to my mobile phone and tell me exactly what to do through the next parts of the process. So the next thing it's told me to do is put these few bits here together to get the CO2 cartridge there. And I open the little valve, and that lets the CO2 out into the thrub container. So with that, I've Googled it, and the CO2 is heavier than air, so it sinks to the bottom. So I'm not putting air into that keg at this stage. Now, it does confuse me a bit because the next stage, I am putting air into it when I open it to put the yeast in. But I guess it's just good practice to do that every time. So with the yeast, I didn't really know, again, how much to put in. So I've just given it a good pour in there. And I'll have to just research and figure out exactly what I should be putting into the next one, or back to the brew shop for a bit more advice maybe. And just give that a good shaking just to make sure all together. And I just open the valve on the side, and you can see it's just like a little sump in the base, and that will collect anything that drops down through the beer, through the little funneled little bottom. And the last thing is this little device here on the top that will let the gases escape, so the CO2 gas won't build up in it when the yeast is letting off the CO2 and the alcohol and eating up all the sugars. So the last thing to do now is just the tidy up. So I've just taken the mash tun container, and I'm just taking out all these spent grains, and they're just not for anything. This is for the bin really, but it looks really good. I might just try and figure out and see is there anything that you can do with that, because it seems a bit of a shame just to waste it and throw it in the bin. So there's my bag of spent grain to figure out for the next day. And that's it for me for today. So what I've done is I've put that machine on a cleaning cycle. You put a dishwasher tab, you put this special little plastic device in there, and it just washes that whole machine through. The mini keg is plugged in, and it was making my beer for me overnight. So a few days later now, and the yeast container at the bottom, it just collects the yeast. So the yeast all drops down there into the base. So every now and again you unscrew it, and I thought that would have been just completely dead, but look how lively that yeast is still. I've had loads and loads of bubbles coming out of the top of it, so I know it's been working. And it's a perfect time for me to, I should be taking gravity readings, but I don't really know how to do that yet. But a good time to have a little taster, and yeah, I'm pretty impressed. It's only halfway through, and it's pretty beer-like already. Now again, everything is super sanitised when it comes off, so I sanitise the base of the machine by spraying out, sanitise the yeast tub to put it back on there, give it a little shake around, and I open up the tap on the side again so that any yeast in the final stages of clarification will all drop out of there. So past that stage now, we're looking to really get the bubbles into the beer. So the carbonation phase is here. So I've got that CO2 canister again, and the same little plastic device to clip onto the top. And I open up that CO2 valve, and for a little bit you can just hear the CO2 pop into the keg, and then it stops. The pressure, I guess, equalises. And we've got a little valve on the top that will let the pressure go if it builds up too much. Okay, so here we have it. The moment of truth. Been waiting a long time for this. Well, 2 weeks really, to be sure. My first beer. Turn up the gas a little bit more CO2 in there. And that's looking good. But will it taste good? It's quite a slow pour. I don't know, maybe I need to change the gas cartridge to give it a bit more. But look at that. Nice colour. That is not bad. It's not bad. The goal is to make a beer that's as good as the craft beers that I'm drinking, and to be honest, it's not quite there. I aim to do a bit better, but for my first beer, that is not bad.